This portion of Mark Moseley Show is brought to you by 15-foot skeleton climbing out of the ground. Yes, when you install 15-foot skeleton climbing out of the ground in your yard, it'll keep all the neighborhood children away from your house. Imagine how terrifying it must be to a kid seeing a 15-foot-high skeleton digging its way out of the earth and coming to eat them. This Halloween night, when not a single child rings your doorbell, just know that you may have taken this evil demonic thing a little too far this time with the new 15-foot skeleton climbing out of the ground. From the same people who brought you Two-Story Santa.
I'm Mark Moseley. Welcome to the Mark Moseley Show podcast, a weekly podcast where we talk a lot about politics and there's a little bit of comedy mixed in. This White House ballroom story, the big story of the week, is off the charts TDS. First of all, I saw one pundit early in the week lamenting the fact that no one is talking about this story while everyone was talking about it. No. The story that no one was talking about was the tree stand platform near the Palm Beach airport with a direct line of sight to where Air Force One lands. That's the story no one was talking about. But everyone was talking about this ballroom. Hillary Clinton even says, "It's not his house, it's your house, and he's destroying it." Hillary, what happened to your voice? What's going on there, Hillary? Why do you sound like Roseanne Barr? Because I don't do a Hillary Clinton impression, that's why, Bill. Oh, okay. Never mind. Go ahead. Other liberals have posted contradictory statements. Chuck Schumer wrote, $200 million for Trump's large, fancy White House ballroom. That's what Doge was for. Not to save money for you, to give money for some fancy place for Trump. Wrong, false, liar. The money is coming from contributions. And Chuck Schumer knows this for a fact, which means that your minority leader of the Senate is lying to you, doesn't think you're an idiot, knows you're an idiot, and doesn't care. He would know where the money's actually coming from. Straight up lying, plain as day, for all to see, inarguable. Case closed, microphone dropped. Lying. Liar! But which is it? Is he destroying the White House or is he making improvements? You know, anybody that's ever done a kitchen or bathroom remodel knows that you can't put in the new cabinets until you demolish the old ones. If you want to move a toilet or a bathtub, you're going to have to bust some concrete. But we don't tell our friends, I'm expanding the master bath and I'm destroying my house at the same time. If it was a car and you were putting in an upgraded sound system, you wouldn't tell people, I'm driving my car off a cliff. You'd say, I'm putting in a new sound system. But you see, the left is trying to have it both ways. They're trying to say Trump's destroying the White House while also saying he's spending, and I don't know, now I hear $350 million. So the number keeps going up. And half the internet has it wrong. They're trying to claim it's taxpayer money. No, it's not. The money's coming from Apple, from Google, from Meta, Amazon, Comcast, T-Mobile, Microsoft, Coinbase, Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar, HP, Union Pacific Railroad, and many, 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 many others. And construction won't even be complete until sometime during MVP Vance's first term as president. He may get to use it for his inaugural ball. Maybe. The left is just losing it. He's destroying the White House. How dare we? Yeah, because you have so much reverence for that building.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
And aren't these the same people who go around burning things down and toppling statues? Doesn't the left hate the founding fathers because they were slave owners and misogynists? And now suddenly it's the sacred building that George Washington built. You mean the George Washington about which the author of the 1619 Project said, quote, Washington was a slave owner. The entire point of the 1619 Project is to reframe American history around the arrival of enslaved Africans, which is the true founding of our country as we know it. Ibram X. Kendi said Washington didn't just own slaves, he bred them for profit and hunted down runaways. Celebrating him without this context perpetuates the myth of a colorblind founding. Is this the same guy about which Bernie Sanders said, George Washington was the richest man in America. He owned slaves, and he was a big landowner who evicted tenants ruthlessly. The founders weren't fighting for economic justice. They were protecting their own fortunes. But we love Washington now. He built that beautiful house that Trump is tearing down. I love Lincoln Bandlow's response to Hillary Clinton. He's an entertainment lawyer in L.A., so we're talking about an incredibly brave and bold man to be posting on X at all. He writes, so let's talk about how this works. Yes, it's our house, the people's house. Here's the thing. We don't live in it now or ever. Rather, we rent it out to someone for a term of 4 years. So 77 million of us rented it to Donald Trump. Now Donald Trump calls us up and says, I'm going to build a $250 million ballroom that will massively improve your property and make it the envy of the world for grand events to celebrate all presidents to come, and it won't cost you a penny. Deal. That's what Lincoln Bandlow wrote on X. The left is very mad that Trump's destroying the White House, but Truman literally gutted the entire interior all the way down to the brick of the exterior walls. But when Trump does anything, and you try to say, oh, well, look at Truman. Whataboutism? Whataboutism, Mark? Whataboutism? Yes, whataboutism. A term that leftists made up to use when their emotional arguments are being destroyed by facts, and they need a way out of the corner they've painted themselves into with their hypocrisy. The East Wing, yes, it's a part of history, recent history. It was built in 1942. My mom is older than the East Wing. Do they think that Trump's just going to leave it like that? Oh, there's a big gaping hole in the ground. I don't know. Probably not. Maybe you do have a point. The man's never built anything before in his life, right? How do we do this now? We're going to get some wood, right? We get some wood, and we're going to need some nails. We know we need nails, big, beautiful nails. Big, fat, beautiful, look at those nails. Those are fantastic nails and some great wood. That's terrific wood. And then what do? We need to somehow get the wood to stick together. We use the nails for that. How do we get the nails to go into the wood to make the wood stick together? We're going to need some kind of a tool to put the nails into the wood and make the wood stick together. The man's been a builder for 50 years. I think it's going to look okay when it's done. This reaction by the left is the most Trump derangement syndrome proof of the whole second term so far. Never before have so many been so emotionally manipulated to the point that there's just spittle running down their chins. We need a cure, folks. We need a cure for this.
At Pfizer, we're introducing our latest highly experimental vaccine, a treatment for severe Trump derangement syndrome. Introducing Magapentin. Magapentin eradicates acute partisanitis with precision targeting of outrage receptors. In a single injection, although many boosters will be needed, Magapentin inhibits hyperpolarized neural fixation on everything Trump and has been completely clinically tested for almost 3.5 weeks, so you know it's safe and effective. And the best part is, you don't have to wonder, should I take Magapentin? Because it's a mandatory injection. And if you refuse, you'll lose your job and ruin your whole life. But this isn't about you right now. It's for the good of society. Think of the children and just take the vaccine already. Magapentin, new from Pfizer.
It's Mark Moseley Show. Follow Mark on X, Instagram, and Facebook at Mark Moseley. And subscribe for new episodes weekly on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, I drove by one of the big rallies on Saturday. I wanted to see in person what an No King's Day rally looked like. Actually, I was trying to get to the Chick-fil-A, and the completely organic collection of people, somehow without any coordination at all, wound up mysteriously converging all in one location. They just all sort of wandered together into a crowd. I assume all of them have psychic abilities, and that's how they found each other, because as we all know, liberal activist groups are not coordinating. Yeah, I know I'm being a little hyperbolic, but come on. That's what you guys do. Now, I don't live in the heart of SoCal, so Southern California, but that we say SoCal around here. Yeah, hello, we live in SoCal. So I don't live in the heart of SoCal. So I would estimate the crowd in my area was about 200 people. That, of course, is a liberal estimate, baby. Oh, behave. Sorry, that just felt like an Austin Powers phrasing. Any excuse to do an impression on this show. I have no shame. I have talent, and I'm going to flaunt it. No, but I did. Of course, this was No King's Day 2. More No Kings. No King's Day, the sequel. Even Fewer Kings. No King's Day, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. But the Empire didn't strike back, did it? I have to say, I was surprised. I saw no stormtroopers. I did not spot a single jackboot. No heads were stomped. There was no tear gas, no pepper balls. Very little blood running in the gutters. I mean, some blood, but just not much. Almost no blood. Very little carnage whatsoever. There were carnitas, but there was no carnage. There was a carnita cart right there. Because we are in SoCal, and carnita carts are on every corner. But I saw no carnage to speak of. I did see, I think I saw one Black Hawk helicopter, although that might have been a crow. Do Black Hawk helicopters caw? You're mocking me, aren't you? Yes, I am. But I definitely saw no evidence of a king. So, congrats, you guys. You did it. You did it! You did it, guys. You got rid of Donald Trump. I did hear the voice over the standard issue bullhorn saying, "Hey, ho, Donald Trump has got to go." And lo and behold, he went, didn't he? I mean, we all remember when we woke up on Sunday morning and Trump was no longer president. J.D. Vance is now the president, and he's picking Marjorie Taylor Greene as his VP, which I'm sure would be just fine with every liberal in America. I did see two things that I would like to point out in the run-up to No King's Day. First of all, I saw Republicans saying that the No King's Day rallies were a hate America rally. I have to say, I think it's lazy to phrase it that way. I wasn't a big fan when I saw Mike Johnson and other Republicans saying that, because I think it's just as bad as when the left does it. But Mike Johnson and the others said that, and then, of course, every Democrat politician had to clap back. Here's Chris Murphy of Connecticut and what he had to say.
So the big No Kings protest is coming up on Saturday. This is a really important day. It's a day for this country to stand up and say that we've had enough with the destruction of democracy, the building of Trump's censorship state, the evisceration of our health care. But it's pretty incredible how Republicans are showing their true colors. They're showing us how much they hate democracy. They're showing us how much they hate free speech. The rhetoric is ramped up from Republican leaders in the last few days. These aren't sort of fringe actors in the conservative movement. These are the leaders of the House Republican Conference calling the protesters protesters that are going to show up on Saturday terrorists, saying that No Kings is a hate rally. What Republicans are basically telling you is that they hate free speech. They hate free speech when it isn't conservative speech, when it isn't pro-Trump speech. If you offer any criticism of this government, then you hate America. That's ridiculous, un-American, and unpatriotic. The fact is, our country was founded on the idea that everyone has a right, a God-given right, a constitutionally protected right to speak up and protest your government, especially when you think they have become lawless and corrupt. And so the idea that the people who are showing up to protest Trump are terrorists, trying to get you to stay home. They're trying to get you to believe that simply by peacefully protesting your government, you're inciting violence. That is, of course, not true, but their tactics will work if we don't show up. Their tactics will end up in our democracy being destroyed if, by labeling you as terrorists, we decide to stay indoors. And so let's be there. Let's be there peacefully but forcefully protesting Trump's corruption. Let's show up in big numbers, whether it be at the rally in Washington, D.C. or at rallies all across this country. This is important. You don't back down when bullies try to silence you. You stand up and you speak up.
He posted that on X, and then Chris and others claimed that this language that the Republicans were using, they claimed it was an effort to suppress turnout, which I'm not so sure about that, because I think most of us on the right understand enough about how liberal minds work to know that that only emboldened you to show up more. I mean, you're going to show up harder on Saturday. So I think it was kind of dumb for Republicans to say that. But the part I have trouble with is that all of a sudden the left is incredibly super sensitive and thin-skinned about name calling. You know, because what they objected to was Democrats being called terrorists and communists and people that hate America. And let me ask you this. Do any of these phrases sound familiar to you? Basket full of deplorables. Floating garbage. By the way, the full Hillary quote was, you know, just to be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables, right? The sexist, racist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. Kamala Harris said, Donald Trump is a fascist. He admires dictators. But now all of a sudden you bristle with phony outrage at being called names, at being called terrorists or communists. The other thing that I saw that was all over X was, and this I had to chuckle at, liberal pundits claiming that No King's Day is terrifying to Trump and to MAGA. I believe that to be pure projection. And maybe these people don't realize that they're doing that. That's projection. You see, we are not controlled by emotions and fear on the right. We're the people that stay calm in a crisis. We use logic and we figure things out and we figure out how to make things work. I have said for years, all the survivors on The Walking Dead are all Republicans. The liberals are the zombies. Read what you will into that. But you guys are the panicky ones. And I couldn't find anyone who was able to articulate what they meant by it's terrifying. Am I under my bed? Do I have the blanket over my head? Am I prepping? What am I doing? Am I building a bunker? And why should I be terrified of my fellow citizens? What are you saying there? Apparently, when liberals all go to like a local park and, on a lovely fall Saturday morning and bunch up, holding signs, decrying something that literally isn't happening, that's terrifying. You know what? Now that I think about it, it is terrifying. You know what does terrify me? That you all showed up on Saturday because propaganda works. That is scary. Welcome back to Mark Moseley Show, continuing with the discussion of the aftermath of No King's Day. No King's Day actually proved that democracy under Trump is working just as it should be. I saw people posting on social media that because so many people were in the streets protesting, that then meant Trump should resign. No, it actually proved the opposite. It proved Trump doesn't need to resign. I mean, look, I know you don't like Trump. I know you would love it if you could wave a magic wand and he would go away. But the fact that you had this protest and 7 million people showed up, it really just showed that the system is working as it should. Because how many of those who protested over the weekend, last weekend, have been snatched up by the government since then and disappeared? Their families don't know where they are. How many American citizens out there mocking their leader with signs were detained and questioned about their loyalty to the state and then put on a list, an enemies list? How many of them have had their social credit score lowered for attending? How many of them were flagged by the executive branch for the FBI to keep an eye on? You know, like what happened with Catholics under the Biden administration, or parents attending school board meetings. Anybody? What's that I hear? Is that the sound of crickets? If we had an authoritarian dictator, would all records for protest attendance have been broken? And you're doing this all during a government shutdown, an American government shutdown, the result of political gridlock, which in itself shows that we still have a fully functional multi-party system. I know. Republicans have all the power. Except if someone has all the power, how do they find themselves at the mercy of their political opponents? You know, there's been 12 votes, and every single time the Democrats have folded their arms across their chests, stomped their feet on the floor, and went, no. So how do Republicans have all the power? But it's a silly argument, because in a monarchy, the King Trump would have just simply issued a decree and kept the government open or reopened it and just keep the treasury flowing. Which brings me to another small point here. The government is shut down, but the National Mall in D.C. was still open. Now, I remember there was a time when there was a government shutdown under Obama, and the National Mall in D.C. was closed. People said, at the time, some people said that Obama did it deliberately and spitefully to show that, well, we need to get the government open, and the Republicans are blocking that. So we have to shut down the national park system and shut her down. Shut her down. So 500,000 people were allowed by King Trump to access the National Mall and attend a No King's Day rally. A king, knowing that a protest was coming, would have said, oops, we ran out of money to run the parks. Now we have to shut them down. But that didn't happen, did it? So everywhere I look, every aspect of this I examine shows me zero evidence of a king. Maybe there wasn't one all along. When I come back, oh, look, Hitler canceled an invasion.
It's Mark Moseley Show.
Welcome back to Mark Moseley Show. Thanks for following me on all social media platforms. Go follow me on X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Mark Moseley, Moseley. I do have a digital tip jar, and that's at Venmo at Mark S. Moseley, if you want to, So this just in, Hitler isn't invading after all. Hitler, a friend of his called him up and asked him not to blitzkrieg the city by the bay, and Hitler just backed right off. just like the real Hitler, who in 1940 didn't invade Denmark when his friend Hans Wurst telephoned to ask him not to. Hitler said, "Okie dokie, you betcha." You know, when Hitler's golf buddy rang him up and said, "Yo, what's up, Dolphy? Look, could you not annex Czechoslovakia?" Adi said, "No problem, my guy. Just for you, I won't invade." So if Hitler's not invading San Francisco, what does that do to the left's narrative that he's going to put the military on the streets of every American city so he can stop the midterms? I'm just wondering. What are you doing, Trump? You can't be backing off on the invasion and takeover of American cities. You got to go harder. You got to go faster. The master plan for the master race is just all falling apart. It's crumbling right before our very eyes. Does this do anything to the liberal talking points? Will they admit that maybe, just maybe, he'd be the first authoritarian dictator in history to back down on his secret master plan to take over the world because a buddy asked him not to? Will this do anything to the liberal talking points, or are they just going to pivot back to 34 felony convictions? 34 felony convictions. Yes, 34 felony counts with no fine, no probation, no punishment whatsoever. Do you know there's never been a recorded case in New York State court history where a defendant convicted of 34 felony counts received an unconditional discharge? Never happened before, ever. Things that make you go, But that's an argument for another day. Let's get back to Trump being the absolute worst literally Hitler in the history of literally Hitlers. Trump sucks so bad. Here's another thing he's failed at. I think we can all remember the young, plucky, I can take on the world, literally Hitler, of Trump's first term. So full of vinegar and vigor and ambition and lots of hand gestures that you could just swear were Nazi salutes. But now, man, this is just sad. Trump talks low and slow and calmly. Have you noticed that? Well, we talk a lot. We talk a lot lower and slower than we did the first time. The first term, Trump was out there and he was screaming everything, and now he's just so laid back. It's hard to believe he's literally Hitler 2.0. So very quiet. Maybe that quietness, maybe that calmness is actually what you find so disturbing. I don't know. But he had the perfect opportunity last weekend to drone strike 7 million of the rebellion and failed. Trump failed to drone strike a single American citizen. And now he's not even invading San Francisco. A city I think we can all agree is aching to be invaded. If for no other reason, to pick up some of that poo. Ew. As the Joker put it, this town needs an enema. But once again, calling Trump Hitler, guys, it just besmirches the good name of Hitler, who is right now in hell going, can you believe this? This guy is supposed to be me? I killed 17 million people, and Trump hasn't even put a single political enemy in prison. That's Bush League. That's whack, as the kids would say. I mean, I don't know, but are the kids still saying that? I don't know, because in hell we don't get Disney Channel or Nickelodeon. The only thing we have is the old reruns of Drake and Josh. And by the way, that Drake Bell is yummy. Oops, that sounds gay. Oh no, now I have to round myself up and put myself to death. Mark Moseley Show, where it's all ice talk all the time. Said, well, you guys won't stop talking about it. So I can't stop talking. I would love to move on from talking about ICE and how ridiculous all your arguments are. Senator Dick Durbin, though, he's like, hold my beer. He had the dumbest take this week on ICE in Chicago. Take a listen.
It isn't a temporary thing. It is a long-term commitment by the president to militarize neighborhoods, particularly those in blue states and cities like Chicago. And what is the purpose? Not just to spread fear, but when the election comes, which is another few months away, of course, but when the election comes, to discourage people from voting in those neighborhoods, if not disqualify them. Does that sound like an outlandish idea from a president who refused to accept the fact that he lost an election? It doesn't to me, and it becomes a reality every time I come home. This president argues that there are dangers in the streets of Chicago. 2 weeks ago, the streets were overrun by 53,000 people who didn't live in Chicago. It's called the Chicago Marathon, and they had 53,000 participants and their supporters. A calm, peaceful, quiet, great day in the history of Chicago. And for him to characterize this as a criminal city and one that needs military occupation is totally unfair and doesn't reflect the reality. This last Saturday, as I mentioned, over 100,000 people gathered without violent incident. And a reminder that cities like that are being besmirched by the president are still solid places to live, with their challenges and problems, of course. But beyond that, it certainly doesn't merit the military presence the president is suggesting.
Okay, well, we just talked about how Trump backed out of his plan, Poopy Town Blitzkrieg. But discouraging voting? Again, how did discouraging No King's Day work out? Did it look like anyone was discouraged? Let's allow the premise for a second. If Trump was trying to discourage turnout at No King's Day, it looks to me like what that does is only encourage Americans to go out and defy that discouragement, which I applaud. It just shows that democracy is alive and well. It's working. The system is working. When a politician you don't like says, I don't want you to do this thing, and then you go, screw you, we're going to go out and do it anyway, guess what that's called? Democracy. It's not a monarchy. Certainly not a dictatorship. And as far as citing the Chicago Marathon, okay, you had a marathon. See, this is a great example of the left's straw man strategy. Claim that Trump is saying that Chicago or Portland or wherever is just a completely lawless hellscape on every corner all day and night long. So that when you say, hey, we had 100,000 people at a fun run and it didn't get shot up, so that means Trump's crazy. Never mind that last weekend in Chicago, 25 people were shot. But Trump isn't saying that the entire city of Portland is on fire and controlled by, roving packs of wild bears with shotguns. He's saying that around the operations of ICE facilities, there's a disregard for law enforcement, and ICE needs backup at those locations. Trump just doesn't articulate it as well as he should, and that really kind of rubs me the wrong way. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say this. Local police have been instructed not to help ICE by local mayors. So we need to bring in outside help. Again, it is exactly because of sanctuary city policies that the feds have to bring in troops, because local cops can't back up ICE in the execution of their sworn duty. And Dick Durbin, in spite of his greatly advanced age, here's a guy who's been around politics so long, he could have been an usher at the Ford Theater that showed Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln to their seats. Still should be cognizant enough to know these things are facts. So he's just standing there lying to everybody. It should be pretty clear to anyone who has a brain bigger than that of a spider monkey. But no, we have to keep spelling this out for those of you whose default setting is Trump is Hitler and ICE are his stormtroopers. But this is part of a bigger problem that we have with the left in this country. They proceed from premises that they haven't proven. Here's how it goes. Trump is destroying the White House, and that's unconstitutional, so he needs to be impeached or imprisoned or worse. God forbid. I mean, you've been on X, right? You've been on Facebook, right? The leaps that people make. But you haven't established your opening premise. If you start with Trump is destroying the White House and then go to that's unconstitutional and then go to so he needs to be impeached. No. You haven't proven that Trump is destroying the White House. You're just saying words and then following up with so this is what we need to do. You can't leap to Trump should be impeached because you haven't established that he's done something unconstitutional. Just saying that it's unconstitutional and repeating that and having other people echo it, that's not proof. Imagine how far you would get in court if the DA stood up and said, Your Honor, we believe the defendant is guilty. Okay, well, where's your evidence? Well, no, we just feel he's guilty. And now I've said it twice, Your Honor. Do you need me to say it a third time? That's how the left constructs their narratives. Because anyone can just claim anything. This is what they did in the Russian collusion hoax. You had people in the intelligence community with the Steele dossier, and people in the intelligence community went to friends in the media, and they said, well, this Steele dossier says Trump got help from Putin. And then the media source says, oh, wow, our guy at the CIA says blank. And you know, that's the CIA. They never lie. So then they print it. And then the CIA turns around and goes to a federal judge and says, look, this big story, the New York Times, they're saying Trump's people are colluding with Russia and we need to wiretap them. And then the judge goes, wow, the New York Times said it. Here's your court order. That's how it all went down, kids. You can say anything you want. Trump is a lizard man from the planet Gorn. And then someone else gasps and says, I heard Trump is a lizard man from Gorn. And then they repost that on X, and then it gets shared 1 billion times until eventually it gets to some nut who goes, well, we can't have a reptilian humanoid from Gorn running the country. Mom, make me some Hot Pockets. I'll be in the basement carving die reptile man die on some bullets. So when it comes to ICE and it comes to Trump attempting to clean up the some of these major cities, consider this. Is this a factor in any way in the left's resistance on a local level? Take a listen to this post from a user on X.
I don't want Donald Trump to come in there with the National Guard, because if they clean up the crime, Chicago will lose $800 million in federal funding for crime programs. That's why they don't want Donald Trump there. It's all about the money.
It's 100% true. I've been talking about it online, and they're trying to use the money in order to plug the budget deficit and the holes. And that's why they're trying to monetize crime. It's one big system. It's a racket. And black people are falling for it. These liberal protesters are falling for it that don't even live in Chicago. Illinois, they not even playing no games as far as trying to make sure that they plug that budget deficit. And so they're dependent on Donald Trump. And so instead of actually cleaning up crime and balancing the budget like they're supposed to, they begging the federal government for money and trying to act like it's these community programs, and they juking the stats in order to get to the money. It's one big racket.
Is that a factor in any way of local mayors and even state governors pushing back on Trump's efforts to reduce crime in major cities? The fact that they will lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Things that make you go, I like to keep it spicy on this podcast with lots of biting humor, and I also like it spicy when it comes to food, and that's why I love the Cumin Club. I love to cook. I love food that's adventurous, and one of the best ways to add variety to your life is through trying new foods and new flavors. Well, the Cumin Club invites you to dive into a world of authentic Indian flavors with their meal kits, which are expertly crafted to bring the rich, diverse tastes of India right into your kitchen, and very easily. Each kit boasts all natural ingredients. They're all portioned and ready to cook in just 5 minutes. I've tried a lot of other different food meal prep services, and sometimes they take like an hour to put together. The Cumin Club gives you a quick and hassle-free dining experience. They're also completely free from preservatives. So embrace the essence of India and transform dinner into a cultural journey. Discover the joy of effortless cooking and elevate your palate today with the Cumin Club. Welcome to the last segment of the show, the non-political part of the podcast. We love the Babylon Bee on this show. No, they aren't paying me to say this. I just like them, and as I've said in the past, they were part of inspiring me to do this show because they do satire so well, and I like satire, and I like political satire, and I like creating political satire. But my favorite Babylon Bee post this week is actually non-political. But I absolutely love it because one of my pet peeves out there in the real world but well, you know what? Let me not step on the article here. It'll be clear to you what one of my pet peeves is as you take a listen to this article from the Babylon Bee. Headline, man breaks down sobbing as he admits to cashier he is not a Walgreens Rewards member. From Peru, Illinois, Walgreens cashier Brent Hillside took a hiatus from his job this week after dealing with what he described as a strangely emotional customer who began sobbing uncontrollably when he asked him if he was a Walgreens Rewards member. He just broke down, and nothing I could say would convince him that it was okay, Hillside said. I didn't know what to do. It was just too much. Some customers are just so weird. The incident was caught on CCTV cameras. The unidentified man approached the register to purchase a scented candle and a greeting card, presumably for his wife. When Hillside casually asked him about the membership program, he lost all composure. No, I'm not a rewards member, the unidentified customer said before softly sobbing. I'm so sorry. What a wretch I am. I'm worthless, half a man. Hillside tried to comfort the customer and get on with the transaction, but he wouldn't allow it. No, I'm not a member. I'm not a member. He then stormed out of the store without his items. Hillside said he had never had a more uncomfortable moment in customer service and said he was considering going back to school to become a social worker. Maybe in time I can find that man and really help him become a Walgreens Rewards member. At publishing time, Walgreens had introduced a support group for customers struggling with the knowledge that they were not members of the rewards program. I love it. I love it. It's time now for some good news. We love the good news on this show. It's the story of Jack Russell puppy Chloe, a support dog who belongs to Catherine Anderson, who's a 71-year-old woman from Rowbon, I hope I'm saying that right, Wales. Here's what happened. On a recent afternoon, Catherine was napping on her living room sofa with Chloe. She got up to answer a phone call. She slipped and fell, hitting her head hard on the wall. She was knocked unconscious and wasn't wearing her emergency pendant alarm, which she had left in the bedroom. Chloe instinctively went and pressed the red emergency button on Catherine's pendant, somehow retrieving it and activating a response. When the staff at her emergency service couldn't reach anyone by phone, they could hear Chloe's frantic barking over the line and dispatched paramedics right away. Catherine woke up surrounded by medics, with Chloe fussing worriedly at her feet. Doctors suspected a skull fracture on the right side of her head, and she spent the night in the hospital for observation. She's now recovering well. Grateful for her new pup's bravery, Catherine wrote to Queen Camilla of Wales, a known dog lover, to share the story. In response, the Queen sent a personalized letter, a signed photo of herself with one of her dogs, and a gift bag with treats and toys for Chloe. The most amazing part of this story, which shows that Chloe is clearly a very smart dog, this happened after Chloe had lived with Catherine for only 2 days. And now we pivot from smart to stupid with our doofus of the week to wrap up the show. In Miami, Florida, Jake Harlan chose an odd weapon to try to rob a local 7-Eleven. Jake attempted to smash the glass window of the 7-Eleven with his weapon, a frozen turkey that he had just stolen from a nearby Publix. Oh man, do I miss Publix. We don't have them in California. Their hot food bar with all those Cuban entrees. Oh my God. Anyway, now I'm getting hungry. Let me wrap this up quickly so I can go eat. Anyway, Jake, back to Jake and the frozen turkey. Jake flung the pilfered bird into the front door glass of the convenience store. Unfortunately, the door was reinforced and the turkey became a 15-pound boomerang, bouncing back towards Jake's head, knocking him flat on his back right into a puddle of his own spilled Slurpee. Security cam footage showed him jumping up, yelling, "It's the bird's fault!" and turning to run away. And just as he turned and started to run, he ran straight into a police car that was perfectly timed, like in a movie, to be pulling up at that exact moment. I'm not kidding. That's exactly what happened. Jake was arrested for burglary, theft, and public intoxication. What seems to be the officer problem? Because his Slurpee had been spiked with alcohol. The clerk comped the cops free big gulps to thank them for saving her. The police report noted, "Suspect subdued by poultry physics." The turkey was returned to the store unharmed. You know, Jake, I think if you're going to wing it like that, at least pick up a thawed bird. It might hurt less when it flies back towards your skull. I seem to recall from my high school Spanish class, the word that applies here it means both turkey and idiot, and it's, I hope I'm saying it right. My Spanish is rusty. Guajolote. Well, that's the show. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another foray into political absurdity. Until next time, may God bless you with health, joy, and wisdom, so you won't be a guajolote.